Mom's sick, so I came instead. Little black girl walked into the job interview. What the Millionaire CEO did. The faint morning light slanted across the pale hospital walls as Sarah clutched her phone, her hands trembling with fever and exhaustion. Her breathing was shallow, labored by the illness clawing through her body. I'm so sorry, she stammered, voice cracking, tears stinging her eyes. I truly want to be there. I've been preparing so hard, but right now On the other end, the voice was sharp, emotionless. We do not reschedule interviews. If you are absent at the appointed time, your application will be withdrawn. Thank you. A click, then silence. Sarah let her arm fall limp, the phone slipping from her grip. Her chest tightened painfully as a wave of hopelessness crushed her. She stared at the stark white ceiling above, her vision blurry not just from the fever but from the tears that spilled freely now. Her eyes fell to the scuffed leather bag at her bedside. Inside was her one lifeline, the carefully prepared resume she'd spent days polishing and printing. It was tucked safely in a clear folder. A small note she'd written to herself days earlier peeked out from the top. This is the start of something better. She pulled the folder closer, hands shaking, holding onto it like a prayer. Tears streaked down her cheeks. Please, she whispered hoarsely, voice so soft it barely rose above a breath, don't take this chance from me. My daughter deserves so much more. In the corner of the room, perched on a plastic chair far too big for her, sat Lily. Just 4 years old, with golden hair and clear blue eyes as bright as the morning sky, she watched her mother with a seriousness beyond her years. She had seen her mother sacrifice over and over, working late nights, coming home bone-tired, singing lullabies no matter how exhausted. She had watched Sarah fix their broken toaster with tape and a spoon, and quietly skip meals so Lily would never go hungry. And now Lily saw her mother cry. She said nothing. Her small hands rested tightly in her lap, eyes fixed on her mother with an intensity no child should ever have to hold. When Sarah finally dozed off, succumbing to a cocktail of fever and fatigue, Lily quietly climbed down from the chair. She approached the bedside, brushed a damp strand of hair away from Sarah's flushed forehead, and then glanced at the worn leather bag. Slowly, she unzipped it, pulling out the folder that seemed to carry so many hopes. She looked at it for a long moment, then turned and tiptoed to where her pink dress hung on a hook. The dress with the little white bows on the sleeves, her best dress. She slipped into it carefully, her tiny shoulders squared with resolve. With the folder pressed against her chest, she stepped out of the hospital room. No one stopped her as she made her way down the long corridor, past nurses, patients, and the rattling vending machine that hadn't worked in weeks. Nobody noticed her as she reached the elevator and pushed the button with her small hand. The city morning met her with a blast of cool wind, but she didn't waver. She knew exactly where to go. She had seen the name on a brochure her mom taped to their fridge, Braden & Co. Global Solutions. Her steps were steady as she made her way to the bus stop. She remembered the route from the notes Sarah had kept repeating out loud: bus 24, change to bus 9. 40 minutes later, Lily stood in front of a towering glass building, its silver lettering gleaming in the early sun. The lobby beyond looked enormous, polished, intimidating, but she felt no fear. Inside, the reception area was buzzing with people in suits, the constant click of shoes against marble floors, phones ringing, voices murmuring. Behind a broad reception desk, Charlotte flipped through the day's schedule, half listening to someone on her headset. A sudden shadow fell across her paperwork. She looked up, startled, to see a little girl, barely tall enough to reach the counter, gazing up at her with crystal clear blue eyes. Charlotte blinked. "Sweetheart, are you lost?" she asked gently, leaning over the polished desk. The girl shook her head, clutching the folder so tightly her knuckles were white. "I'm here for the job interview," she declared, voice clear and determined. Charlotte's pen froze midair. "The interview?" "Yes." Lily nodded gravely. "It's for my mom. She's sick today, but she really wants this job. So I came instead." A hush fell around the lobby. Several people slowed their pace, drawn to the sight of the tiny girl in a pink dress, carrying a folder almost bigger than she was. Charlotte glanced down at her appointment list, scanning until she found the name, Sarah Parker. 9 a.m. Charlotte swallowed hard. "What's your name, honey?" "Lily." "My mommy is Sarah Parker." Charlotte hesitated, then tapped her headset. "Lena," she murmured to the assistant upstairs, "please tell Mr. Braden he needs to come down. Right now. It's important." Up on the top floor, Albert Braden glanced up from his desk as his assistant stepped into the office, looking as though she might burst with a secret. "Albert, you really should come down for this last interview," she said. He sighed, straightening the crisp lines of his tailored navy suit. "Is it the Harvard grad or the Google manager?" She shook her head, a faint, mysterious smile on her face. "Neither. It's you should just come." Albert rolled his eyes, resigned, and stepped into the elevator. As the door slid open onto the marble lobby, he saw her, a tiny girl in a pink dress, holding a plastic folder like it was a royal decree. His footsteps slowed, completely taken aback. She looked up and beamed. "Are you the boss?" Albert blinked, stunned. "Yes. I'm the boss." She marched forward, offering him the folder with both hands. "My mommy is sick," she explained solemnly. "But she really wants this job. She deserves it." Albert took the folder, glancing around at the staff whose faces were frozen in shock. For a long, unbroken moment, he looked down at the child before him, the blue eyes, the determined stance, the fragile courage. Something shifted inside him, something he had not felt in a very long time. "Charlotte," he said, his voice calm but different somehow, "clear my next 15 minutes. "Sir." He turned toward Lily with a hint of a smile. "I'm going to conduct an interview." Lily's eyes sparkled. She nodded confidently. He led her to a small conference room just off the lobby. The table was far too big for her, but he pulled out a chair and helped her climb up. She perched on it, feet dangling high above the floor, but her posture was steady, unwavering. Albert sat across from her, setting the folder gently before him, eyes still lingering on her. "All right, Lily," he began carefully, trying to find the right tone, "can you tell me why your mom wants to work here?" Lily folded her hands, thinking for a moment. "Mama works really hard," she said clearly. "She doesn't buy things for herself. She saves everything for me. She wants to do something more than clean or serve food. She says she wants to use her brain again." Albert felt something tighten in his chest. He nodded slowly. "Did she go to college?" Lily nodded. "She loved it, but she had to stop when I was born." Albert's throat caught. He steadied himself. "Do you think she would be good here?" "Oh yes," Lily replied without hesitation. "She's really smart, and she helps everyone." Albert lowered his gaze to the resume, reading it again, this time truly absorbing each line. He could see her now, Sarah, a woman who had once dreamed big, who had worked so hard for a better life, then sacrificed it all to raise a child. He looked back at Lily. "Why did you come here today?" Lily's voice softened. "Because Mama was really sad. She wanted to give me a better life. So I came to help." A hush fell over the room, almost sacred in its honesty. Albert leaned back, folding his hands over the folder. The city traffic was faint through the thick glass, leaving them in a stillness that felt almost like hope. He drew a quiet breath. "All right," he said, a small smile beginning to form, "then let's start the interview." Lily's smile lit up the whole room. Albert sat a little straighter, aware that for the first time in years, something in him had shifted, a forgotten piece of his humanity stirring awake. He looked down at Sarah Parker's resume, and then back at the child. "Tell me," he asked gently, "what else should I know about your mother?" Lily thought carefully, then spoke with a fierce little pride. "She works all day, every day. She cleans houses, sometimes she brings people their food, sometimes she fixes things that are broken even if they say they can't be fixed. She never buys herself anything, even when her shoes are full of holes, because she wants me to have good shoes." Albert looked down at Lily's sneakers, white with little glittery stars new. "She says I'm her favorite reason to stop everything," Lily whispered. That simple, innocent truth felt like a hammer against his ribs, breaking through layers of cynicism he'd built around himself. He saw it, a woman who had sacrificed dreams and ambitions, who had chosen love and loyalty over personal gain. Albert closed the folder with a soft finality, eyes meeting Lily's once more, and something deep inside him came alive. "Lily," he said, voice steady, "thank you for coming here today. You've told me everything I needed to know." And this time, the smile on his face wasn't just a twitch of the lips. It was real. Even if it meant scrubbing floors, waiting tables, or skipping meals, Sarah had never stopped fighting. That kind of courage and resilience didn't appear on a resume, but Lily carried its truth in every word she spoke. Albert's voice was quiet, nearly reverent, as he asked, "And what do you want for your mom, Lily?" Lily tilted her head, thinking with a solemn focus. "I want her to be happy," she answered, simple as the sun. "She's always tired. But she smiles when I draw her pictures, or when we watch cartoons together." She paused, then looked up at him with those blue eyes so clear and wide they could have held the sky. "Mama doesn't want a lot of money," she went on, as earnest as only a child could be. "She just wants a job that means she can buy ice cream every weekend." Albert felt his chest tighten, the breath catching in his throat. Something about that wish, so heartbreakingly small and impossibly pure, broke through every layer of ice he'd built around himself. Lily lowered her voice, as if confessing a secret. "She told me once that she'd be the happiest woman in the world if she could buy me ice cream every Saturday." For a moment Albert couldn't speak. Couldn't even breathe. The air between them seemed to grow thick and still, carrying a gravity he could not measure. Lily shifted a little, her feet swinging again, as if trying to break the silence. Albert finally leaned forward, laying Sarah's folder carefully on the table. "Lily," he said softly, "I've interviewed a lot of people in this room. But no one has ever said something so important." Lily smiled, not sure what he meant, but sensing it was something good. Albert continued, choosing every word with care. "I think your mom might be exactly the kind of person we're looking for." Her eyes lit up, her entire face brightening. "Really?" Albert nodded. "Really?" Then, surprising even himself, he added with a half smile, and I know a place that has amazing ice cream. Lily beamed. Mama would like that. For the first time in a long time, Albert felt a smile that reached past the surface, all the way to the corners of his eyes. In that moment, he pictured Sarah across from him, not desperate, but confident, strong, dignified. And Lily by her side, laughing, safe. He stood and walked to the doorway. "Charlotte," he called, voice steady, "please check which hospital Sarah Parker was admitted to yesterday. Send some flowers. And something small for a little girl." Charlotte blinked. "Yes, sir." Albert glanced back at Lily, who was now standing a bit straighter beside her chair, still clutching the folder. "Thank you for coming today," he told her. "You did a very brave thing." She shrugged, a playful grin on her face. "Mama says I'm brave all the time." Albert held the door open. "She's right." When Albert returned to his office, the hush was deep, the light warm against the glass. He sank into his chair and opened Sarah's resume again, but this time, not as a formality. This time, he truly wanted to know her. The resume told a quiet story: a bright student, a scholarship winner, honors in her first year, president of the marketing club. Glowing references from professors. And then, a sudden silence. No degree finished, no internship stories to brag about. Instead, a list of humble jobs: waitress, housekeeper, delivery driver, night shift janitor. Work no one put on a pedestal, but work that had kept a child safe, housed, and fed. At the very bottom, beneath all those experiences, Albert found a single handwritten line in soft, slanted script: "I am not looking for sympathy. I am only asking for a real chance." He stared at that note for a long moment, the words echoing through him. He had built an empire on numbers, logic, and results. But here was something beyond that, something data could never quantify. Grit. Loyalty. Courage. He pressed the intercom. "Charlotte." "Yes, sir." "I need a package sent to City General Hospital." "Of course. What should we include?" Albert stood, scanning his office shelves. He picked up a small, gift-wrapped box meant for a colleague's baby still unused. "And flowers," he added after a moment. "Nothing too flashy. Something honest." Charlotte paused. "Who should we address it to?" He took a deep breath. "Sarah Parker." "And the card?" Albert looked back down at the resume, then quietly said, "Right, to the strongest woman I have yet to meet." The sun glowed gently through the blinds in Sarah's hospital room. She stirred, head aching, body heavy with fever, but something in the air felt different. There was a soft calmness, almost fragile. Her gaze shifted to the bedside table. There, resting against the metal rail, was a small bouquet of wildflowers in muted pastel colors, their scent delicate and bright. Beside it sat a neat cream-colored box tied with a satin ribbon. Confused, she reached for the attached card, her fingers unsteady. "To the strongest woman I have yet to meet." A tremor rippled through her. She sat up straighter, blinking. Was this real? She opened the box carefully, finding a small pack of chocolate milk and a handwritten note. Nothing expensive but impossibly kind. Her heart twisted. Lily. Panic jolted through her. Where was Lily? Fumbling, Sarah snatched her phone from the nightstand, hands shaking, and dialed the number on the interview letter she had tucked in her bag. A calm female voice answered. "Braden & Co., this is Charlotte." Hi, hello. Sarah stumbled over her words, fighting the dizziness. My name is Sarah Parker. My daughter, she's 4 years old, she might have come to your office yesterday with my resume. I'm so sorry, she didn't mean. Charlotte laughed softly, reassuring. Ms. Parker, there's no need to worry. In fact, your daughter may be the bravest guest we've ever had. Our CEO was very impressed. Sarah froze. Your CEO? Yes, Charlotte said, warmly. He'd like to meet you properly, this time. If you're feeling better, he's cleared time this afternoon. Sarah couldn't quite process the words. Are you sure? We're very sure. That afternoon, Sarah stepped from a cab, hands clenched around her old leather bag, heart thudding. Her body still felt weak, cheeks hot with leftover fever, but she had cleaned up as best she could: a simple navy blouse, a plain skirt, hair tied back. She walked into the familiar lobby, blinking at the brightness. Charlotte greeted her at once, a warm, knowing smile on her face. Welcome back, Ms. Parker. He's waiting for you. Sarah followed through hushed hallways, every step echoing with fears and dreams that had weighed on her for years. The elevator climbed steadily. When the doors opened, Charlotte gestured to a large office ahead. He's inside. Sarah swallowed hard and stepped through the glass door. The office was bright and modern, overlooking a skyline that seemed impossibly far from the life she'd led until now. Behind a broad desk stood Albert Braden, calm, confident, but with a smile that reached his eyes this time. Ms. Parker, he said, extending his hand. I'm so glad you're feeling better. Sarah shook his hand carefully, her own trembling. Thank you. I'm so sorry about what happened with Lily, she. Albert lifted a hand, gently stopping her. No apologies, he said. She gave one of the most extraordinary interviews I've ever seen. Sarah blinked in shock. He motioned to the chair across from him. Please, have a seat. She sat, placing her bag in her lap, holding it like a shield. Albert settled back into his chair, his expression thoughtful. You know, he began, tapping Sarah's resume on the desk, I've reviewed thousands of these over the years. But yours came with the most powerful letter of recommendation I've ever received. Sarah's throat tightened. Albert's smile softened, sincere. She believes in you more than anyone I have ever met believes in anything. Tears pooled at the corners of Sarah's eyes. She's my whole world, she whispered. I can tell, Albert said gently. Which is why I'd like to see what you can do here. Sarah's first day at Braden & Co. felt like stepping onto a different planet. Glass walls, the brisk rhythm of heels on tile, the quiet hum of phones and printers. It was the world she'd once imagined before life changed course, and she feared she might not belong. Albert had offered her a position as a junior project assistant, not a temporary role, but a real place, with real responsibility. She had braced for an internship or a file clerk position at best. But this was real. Still, fitting in was hard. Her shoes were worn, her clothes modest. The other staff noticed. They knew, without asking, that she was the candidate with a child, the one hired under unusual circumstances. Some whispered she'd gotten a pity job. Others ignored her completely. Sarah refused to flinch. She arrived early. Stayed late. Took notes. Asked questions. She watched how the senior assistants managed their schedules, how they spoke, how they prioritized. She studied every training module, read every document. She made mistakes plenty, but she corrected them, learned from them, and never repeated them. Over time, the walls began to shift. One colleague asked her to fix a messy presentation. Another requested her help in booking a complicated meeting schedule. Someone even thanked her genuinely for making their day easier. But one person never doubted her, Albert. He never hovered. Never micromanaged. But he watched, quietly, measuring her with eyes that no longer looked through her, but at her. And every time her name came up in a meeting, Albert would often lean forward during meetings, asking Sarah what she had contributed, how her proposals were received, how she felt about them. He noticed the details no one else saw, like the morning Lily woke up sick and Sarah called in, anxious, apologizing that she might be late. Albert had sent a quiet message: family comes first. Take the time you need. Or the afternoon he saw her skipping lunch yet again and casually arranged for his assistant to accidentally leave an extra sandwich in the break room. And during project reviews, he always made sure there was a seat for Sarah at the table, never tucked away at the back. He never made a show of it, but she saw it. For the first time in what felt like forever, Sarah began to believe she was worth something more than just her survival. One evening, the office was mostly dark, only the glow of city lights beyond the windows. Sarah sat alone, fine-tuning the slides for a big client pitch. Her eyes were sore, her hands stiff, but a quiet sense of fulfillment lit her from within. She didn't even hear Albert approach until he spoke. "You work harder than some people who've been here a decade," he said, a hint of pride in his voice. She startled, then smiled. "Well, I've got about 10 years to catch up on." He gestured toward the chair next to her desk. "Mind if I join you?" She shook her head. For a while they sat together in companionable silence, the city humming far below them. Then Sarah's voice broke the quiet, soft and almost hesitant. "I never thought I'd end up somewhere like this," she admitted. Albert looked at her carefully. "Why not?" She took a breath. "I was in college. Marketing. I loved it. Had all these plans, internships lined up. Then." She paused. "I met someone. Thought he was everything. I got pregnant in my first year." Albert didn't flinch, only leaned in, listening. "I thought we'd figure it out together," she continued, voice raw. "But he left. Just disappeared. My parents." Her voice wavered. "They said I had ruined everything. That I'd embarrassed them. They told me to give the baby up or leave." His expression softened. "And?" Sarah let out a small, sad laugh. "I left," she said. "And I never went back." She swallowed hard. "I chose Lily. I chose to be her mom. But I had to give up everything else. My degree, my apartment, the future I thought I was building." Albert reached across and placed a steady hand over hers. Sarah froze, bracing for pity, but there was none. Only calm, unwavering respect. "I was left too," he shared quietly. She lifted her eyes, surprised. "I was 10, he said, voice steady. "My parents died in a car crash. There was no one to take me. I bounced through foster homes, learned how to survive. I built this company to have control because I had lost all of it." He drew a deep breath. "But I never had what you had." Sarah looked at him, puzzled. "What's that?" "Courage," he said. "You chose love, even when it cost you everything. Her tears welled instantly. I used to think I was weak, she whispered. You are anything but, Albert assured her. Silence fell, but it wasn't empty. It was the silence of being seen, of being known. In that quiet, something subtle but unbreakable began to grow: trust. As the months passed, Sarah's world changed. She grew into her role with poise and determination. The colleagues who had once dismissed her began to respect her. They turned to her for help on deadlines, for solutions to tricky problems, for calm guidance during high-pressure meetings. Sarah was no longer the new girl or the one with the kid. She was simply Sarah Parker, the person who got things done, the one whose name carried quiet confidence. Albert noticed every milestone. He no longer needed to check on her work, it spoke for itself. Still, he found reasons to stop by her desk, excuses, really asking questions he already knew the answers to, lingering a bit longer than was strictly necessary. It wasn't just Sarah he grew to care for. It was Lily, too. Every Friday, Lily showed up after preschool, skipping through the halls like she had always belonged there. She'd set up camp in Albert's office with her coloring books, her small shoes tapping against the couch cushions while she waited for Uncle Albert to finish his calls. Sometimes, Albert cancelled his final meeting just to take her out for milkshakes. They had their own rituals. When Lily wanted his attention, she'd call him boss man. He called her the real CEO at company picnics. At lunch, she saved him the last cookie without fail. Sarah watched those small moments with a heart that felt both impossibly full and impossibly terrified. For years she had buried her hopes, putting practicality first. But now love was right there, smiling, holding her daughter on its shoulders, reading bedtime stories in a quiet office, building something she had never let herself wish for. One evening, the three of them sat in Albert's office after hours. Lily was curled up in the corner with a juice box, humming to herself while she colored. Sarah and Albert had just finished reviewing a project plan, sharing that easy laughter that only comes when people have been through storms together. Sarah glanced at Lily, who was blinking sleepily. "She's exhausted," she murmured. Albert nodded. "We can carry her down." Sarah stood, reaching for Lily's little bag. But then a small voice piped up, stopping her cold. "Mommy." Sarah turned, gently. "Yes, sweetheart." Lily looked up at her with guileless blue eyes. "Can I call Uncle Albert Daddy?" The room went still. Albert froze. Sarah's hand trembled, the bag nearly slipping from her grasp. Lily continued, innocent and serious. "Because he always picks me up, and brings me ice cream, and reads to me like you do. And he makes you smile." Tears pricked instantly at Sarah's eyes. Because, deep down, she had already known the answer. She had seen it in the way Albert looked at Lily like she mattered, and spoke to Sarah like she belonged, in the safety she felt whenever he was near. He had let them into a heart he once kept locked behind steel walls, and without realizing it, they had built something, a family. Sarah knelt in front of Lily, voice shaking. "You can call him whatever feels right to you, baby." She turned, terrified to see what Albert might think, but he was already kneeling beside them, his eyes tender and unguarded. He smiled, looking first at Lily, then at Sarah. "I would be honored," he said simply. Sarah broke. The tears spilled over, not from fear or even relief, but from something so powerful it left her breathless: belonging. A year later, Sarah Parker was no longer the trembling mother who had once walked through the Braden & Co. lobby with only hope and a resume in hand. She was now Sarah Parker, project team lead, commanding respect in meetings, mentoring junior staff, and seeing her name highlighted in company progress reports. Albert was never far. Their relationship had stayed quiet at first, out of respect for their roles and for Sarah's comfort, but eventually it became impossible to hide. Albert brought Lily her favorite pastries on Monday mornings. Sarah was the only one who could interrupt his meetings without knocking. The way they looked at each other was no secret, no gossip dared twist it. It was simply something real, something everyone quietly rooted for. Sarah's compassion, her empathy, and her willingness to see overlooked people had made her not just a leader, but a role model. She remembered birthdays, stayed late to help interns, offered a shoulder to those carrying silent struggles because she still remembered what it felt like to have no one see her. And Lily, she became a part of the company in her own right. She had a drawer of crayons in the supply room, her own seat in the break room, and a fan club made up of everyone from interns to senior executives. At a quarterly meeting once, she had walked right up to the microphone and called out, "Good morning, team." And no one ever forgot it. To most, she was the company princess. But to Albert, she was simply his daughter. At the Christmas gala that year, the ballroom shimmered under fairy lights strung in soft gold and deep forest green. Tables were draped in velvet, and music danced through the air. Sarah stood near the great tree, wearing a deep blue gown, her hair loose and shining, her presence calm and graceful. Lily whirled around her in a white dress, silver shoes flashing, laughter bright and clear. Albert stood a few paces away, drink in hand, tuxedo crisp, eyes trained on his girls with a smile that was no longer guarded but wide open and true. He had once shut himself off from these moments. But tonight he stayed close, not out of duty, but out of love. Later, someone tapped a glass, and the room hushed. Albert stepped forward, glancing at Sarah before beginning. "This is usually the part of the night where I talk about targets, numbers, future growth," he began, voice warm. "But tonight, I'd rather talk about something that changed my life." He looked over at Lily, who was giggling with frosting on her cheeks, holding 2 cookies in her tiny hands. "A year ago," Albert continued, "I received the most unusual job application I'd ever seen. It was hand-delivered by someone about 3 feet tall, wearing a pink dress, carrying a resume bigger than she was." Laughter rippled through the ballroom. Sarah covered her face, tears already threatening. Albert smiled, his voice steady but deeply moved. "That little girl didn't just bring in a resume. She brought hope. She brought courage. And she brought me the beginning of something I never knew I needed." He reached out, pulling Sarah and Lily gently into his side. "To both of you," he continued, eyes damp, "thank you for showing up, for holding on, and for walking into my life exactly when I needed you." He turned to Lily with a grin. "Especially you for marching into my office with that giant resume and no fear." Applause thundered through the ballroom, glasses clinked in celebration, and under the sparkling lights, they stood together, not CEO, employee, and child, but a family, forged in courage, love, and an unexpected, unforgettable moment of faith. Because sometimes family isn't who you start with, but who stays. Sometimes love finds you in places you never dreamed: a hospital bed, a boardroom, the determined heart of a child. And so a little girl in a pink dress, armed with love and bravery, had stepped into a world that wasn't built for her and changed it forever. If this story touched you as deeply as it touched us, we invite you to become part of our community. Subscribe to Soul Stirring Stories for more true life tales of resilience, kindness, and quiet miracles waiting in everyday moments. Until next time, keep your heart open. You never know what story might walk into your life.